Welcome to MindMirror Audiobook. In the ever-changing world of finance and investment, there are stories that not only amaze us but also inspire us deeply. Today, we will explore the bold moves and brilliant strategies of individuals who have changed the face of this industry. These stories are not just about numbers, but about profound lessons on vision, perseverance, and the ability to seize opportunities when others are still skeptical. To start, let's take a journey back to the early days of the tech industry, when two young men, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, saw an opportunity that few dared to dream of. This is the story of the birth of Microsoft, one of the greatest brands in tech history. Let's dive into the first story of this fascinating journey. In 1975, a quiet revolution began in the world of investing, one that would transform the entire landscape of financial markets. The man behind this quiet revolution was John Bogle, the founder of Vanguard Group. His idea was simple but powerful: create an investment fund that would mirror the performance of the stock market, rather than try to beat it. Bogle introduced the Vanguard 500 Index Fund, the first ever index fund designed to track the performance of the S&P 500. At the time, the common belief was that in order to succeed in the stock market, you needed expert stock pickers or active fund managers who could outsmart the market. These managers charged hefty fees for their services, promising that they could do better than the market. But Bogle didn't buy into that. He believed that most fund managers couldn't consistently outperform the market, especially when accounting for their high fees. So, instead of selecting individual stocks, he proposed something radical: buy the entire market at a low cost. His logic was simple: why try to beat the market when you could just match it? At first, many in the investment community laughed at him. The idea of investing in a whole market index, rather than picking stocks, was unheard of. After all, the entire financial system was built on the idea that active management, picking the right stocks, was the key to success. But Bogle was relentless. He believed in his vision of low-cost, passive investing. When the Vanguard 500 Index Fund was launched in 1976, it was a breath of fresh air in a sea of expensive, actively managed funds. The fees were minuscule compared to the high-cost alternatives, and it was designed for anyone who wanted to invest without paying sky-high fees. It wasn't about beating the market. It was about joining the market. But Bogle faced massive resistance. Active fund managers, those whose livelihoods depended on picking individual stocks, scoffed at the idea. They argued that index funds couldn't possibly generate high returns. For years, many believed that to make money, you needed expert advice, timing, and stock-picking skills. Index investing, they said, was for those who didn't want to try hard enough. Yet, despite the resistance, Bogle stuck to his philosophy. He wasn't just offering a new financial product, he was offering an educational revolution. He tirelessly spoke about how much money investors lost through high fees and how simple, low-cost investing could build wealth over the long term. Bogle wanted to democratize investing, to make it accessible for everyone, not just the wealthy or those in the know. Slowly but surely, the Vanguard 500 Index Fund began to grow. More and more investors realized that Bogle's strategy made sense. Why try to beat the market when you could just mirror it and pay next to nothing in fees? Over time, the index fund model began to win over the masses. As the fund grew, Bogle expanded his vision. He introduced more low-cost index funds, and the concept of passive investing spread like wildfire. By the time the 2000s rolled around, index funds were no longer a niche product. They had become the dominant force in the investment world. The results spoke for themselves. The Vanguard 500 Index Fund consistently outperformed most actively managed funds, particularly when you accounted for fees. Over the long term, the fund saw average annual returns of around 10%, which is more than most active managers could achieve after their steep fees. Bogle's success wasn't just about the numbers, though. It was about his vision. He proved that investing didn't have to be complex or reserved for the wealthy. By creating a fund that anyone could invest in at a low cost, he made it possible for regular people to build wealth. John Bogle's impact is still felt today. The Vanguard Group now manages over $7 trillion in assets, and the idea of low-cost passive investing has become mainstream. Thanks to Bogle, billions of dollars are now invested in index funds, making it easier than ever for everyday people to build a diversified portfolio without breaking the bank. The lesson from Bogle's story is clear: fees matter. Over time, high fees will erode your returns, while low-cost investing allows your money to grow steadily. And perhaps more importantly, his story teaches us that the simplest approach can often be the most effective. Bogle's legacy lives on in the millions of investors who have benefited from his vision. Through his unwavering commitment to low-cost, passive investing, he forever changed the world of finance and helped people from all walks of life achieve their financial goals. In a world where the complex and flashy often gets the most attention, John Bogle reminds us that sometimes the best strategy is the simplest one: invest broadly, stay patient, and let time work for you. In the end, Bogle's message was clear: you don't have to be a genius to succeed in investing. You just have to make the right choices, stick to your plan, and let the market do its magic. It was the mid-1970s, a time when the concept of personal computing seemed almost like science fiction. But in the minds of two young, ambitious visionaries, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, there was something extraordinary taking shape. While most people viewed computers as massive, complex machines meant for corporations or universities, Gates and Allen saw a future where every home and every person could have access to one. They saw beyond the bulky machines of the present, they saw the future of computing. In 1975, a breakthrough came: the Altair 8800, the first personal computer kit, hit the market. And Gates and Allen? They saw this as an opportunity to create something that would change the world. They quickly developed a programming language called Altair Basic, a system that would run on this new computer. It was their first major step into the world of technology. And it wasn't just a piece of software, it was the birth of Microsoft. But there was no clear road to success. Back then, many people doubted that personal computers would ever become mainstream. Most tech giants were focused on hardware, and software was seen as an afterthought. Yet Gates and Allen weren't just looking at the present, they were looking at the future. A future where software would be just as crucial as hardware. Their vision was clear: software would be the heart of personal computing, and the world just hadn't realized it yet. In 1980, Microsoft had its breakthrough moment. IBM, the titan of the tech world, was preparing to launch its first personal computer, and Gates and Allen saw a golden opportunity. They struck a deal that would forever change the course of technology. IBM initially planned to build its own operating system, but after some negotiation, Microsoft successfully convinced them to license an existing operating system called QDOS, which they then modified. This licensing deal, this simple yet brilliant move, allowed Microsoft to dominate the world of personal computer software, controlling the software side of the burgeoning PC revolution. But getting there wasn't easy. Gates and Allen faced skepticism and resistance at every turn. Personal computing was still viewed by many as a niche market, and most investors didn't believe there was any real money in software. After all, hardware was king. But Gates and Allen weren't deterred. They worked tirelessly to prove that the demand for software was real, that it wasn't just a fad, but a revolution waiting to happen. Even with their early success, there were constant hurdles. Competing with bigger companies like Apple and IBM was no small feat. Microsoft was the underdog. But Gates and Allen never wavered. They understood that licensing software rather than selling it outright was the way to go. It allowed them to reach a broader audience, scale rapidly, and control the software market in ways no one had imagined. As Microsoft continued to grow, they didn't just rest on their success. They pushed forward, creating Windows, the software that would go on to become the most widely used operating system in the world. They expanded their reach, developed products like Microsoft Office, and eventually ventured into gaming and cloud computing, becoming a global powerhouse. The rise of Microsoft wasn't just about making Gates and Allen wealthy, it was about shaping the entire tech industry. They created an industry where software wasn't just a tool for large corporations, but an essential part of everyday life. They helped bring personal computers into homes, schools, and businesses, forever changing how the world operated. By the 1990s, Microsoft had not only become the dominant software company, it had transformed the entire tech landscape. Their software wasn't just a part of the market, it was the market. They had achieved something no one thought was possible. They had made personal computing accessible to billions of people worldwide. So, what can we learn from the story of Bill Gates and Paul Allen? Visionary thinking. Gates and Allen didn't just see personal computers, they saw a future where software would shape the world. The power of licensing, their decision to license software, rather than sell it, allowed them to grow at an unprecedented rate and dominate the market. Adaptation and innovation, they weren't afraid to evolve, adapt, and innovate. Whether it was through Windows, Microsoft Office, or later ventures into cloud computing, they understood that to stay ahead, you had to keep evolving. Strategic partnerships. The deal with IBM wasn't just a business deal, it was the foundation of Microsoft's dominance. It was a reminder that the right partnerships can change the course of history. In the end, Microsoft didn't just build a company, they built an entire industry. Gates and Allen's story reminds us that the greatest successes come from seeing what others can't, thinking big, and having the courage to bring innovative ideas to life. In a world that's constantly changing, they showed us that vision, adaptation, and strategy can turn a dream into a legacy. And there you have it, two remarkable stories of visionaries who changed the course of history in their respective fields. From Bill Gates and Paul Allen's journey to create Microsoft, reshaping the world of technology, to John Bogle's revolutionary creation of the Vanguard 500 Index Fund, which transformed the world of investing. Both stories remind us that success doesn't come from simply following the crowd, but from seeing things differently, taking bold risks, and staying true to your beliefs. These tales of innovation and perseverance show us that with the right vision and unwavering dedication, we can all make an impact, whether in tech, finance, or any field we choose to pursue. If these stories have inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to MindMirror Audiobook for more inspiring stories and valuable lessons from the world of business, innovation, and beyond. Click the bell icon so you never miss an update, and join us on this journey to discover more about the people and ideas that shaped our world. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.